Breaking news for the Ripple and XRP community, Ripple Prime is officially live. And during today's episode, we're going to show our community how big institutions can now tap Ripple Prime to buy huge amounts of XRP and lock it away as collateral. We're also going to show our community how a supply lockup could eventually lead to an increase in price for the token XRP. With ETF issuers, they now have a one-stop shop to buy, trade, and settle XRP. No mess, no stress going forward. We're also going to highlight how the timeline for the XRP ETF is getting closer than ever, with ETF store president Nate Garassi letting the world know an XRP spot product could be live in the American markets in under 2 weeks. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Good Evening Crypto, your favorite crypto news related channel. If you enjoy this content, smash that like button and subscribe, as you're going to get an update every single day, 5:30 p.m. Eastern time. And I wanted to kick off today's episode by reminding our listeners that Ripple Swell starts tomorrow. Now, this event is where the largest and most powerful minds in all of blockchain and technology at large come together in New York City to discuss the evolution of blockchain tech and the potentials for this brand new technology class. Now, what's so exciting for XRP investors is for the first time ever, we are seeing many new companies show up to this event. BlackRock, Fidelity, JP Morgan, MasterCard, Citibank, and nearly a dozen others will all be showing up to Ripple Swell starting tomorrow. And we know that these companies don't come to learn, they come to make new partnerships and deals. So with these companies coming together during this week at Ripple Swell, I would anticipate some new and exciting articles in the months to come from these companies developing blockchain products, potentially involving what Ripple has to offer. Digital Asset Investor commented, usually XRP price is not affected by Ripple Swell, but if there was a BlackRock XRP ETF announcement, I'm betting that would change fast. And I'm not anticipating a BlackRock XRP ETF, but when I look at this large list of companies, many of them can use XRP for trade settlement. Many of them can use them for rewards and earning yields, and maybe even a treasury strategy, depending on if these companies decide to issue ETFs and recommend to clients that they need crypto exposure. But with these companies coming together, one thing is absolutely clear. Blockchain is here to stay in the USA, and TradFi is endorsing this technology. But that's not just my opinion. As Forbes says, XRP is now a very different beast than it was just 1 year ago. Not only from a market cap standpoint, being valued at over $150 billion, but the fact that we have real world businesses finally leveraging the XRP Ledger for many of their actual use cases. Hidden Road, now known as Ripple Prime, leveraging XRP for post-trade settlement. We have Rail, which is responsible for 10% of all B2B transactions that happens in stablecoins. They're now going to be leveraging the RLUSD stablecoin. So as more businesses begin to rely on Ripple products, it's inevitable that demand for this asset will increase as well. And where we are on the XRP price chart, for the majority of investors, we are trading sideways. But that's not stopping Japanese investors from getting exposure to XRP, as Japan has approved 8 new non-financial companies to hold XRP as part of their cryptocurrency assets. But the timing has been left to each company. And what I'm anticipating is that as we see the American markets adopt many of these assets, countries around the world will follow. China, Singapore, Japan, the UAE, South America, countries all across the world will begin adopting digital assets and hopefully adding these assets to their balance sheet. We even know that Ripple is going as far as to create the company Evernorth, which will be offered on the NASDAQ starting in 2026. This company is going to go out and acquire $1 billion worth of XRP to use as a treasury, deploy that XRP to earn a yield, use that compounded yield to reinvest in XRP, and continue this process for years to come. If this business strategy proves profitable, we are going to see many other companies follow over the next half decade. But with that being said, let's begin talking about the American adoption of XRP that we're anticipating towards the back end of the year. Nate Garassi, ETF store president, commented, sometime in the next 2 weeks, I expect the launch of the first spot XRP ETFs. The SEC had open litigation against Ripple for the past 5 years, up until only 3 months ago. In my opinion, the launch of the spot XRP ETFs represents the final coffin of previous anti-crypto regulators. We have come a very long way. And Eleanor Terrett doubled down on these predictions as she shared Canary Capital's XRP spot ETF is scheduled to go live on November 13th, assuming that the NASDAQ greenlights the A-8 filing. So if you agree with Nate Garassi here and you believe we see XRP ETFs in the month of November, smash that like button. If you disagree, leave a comment underneath the video. And with these ETFs scheduled to go live in November, Ripple Prime is going to be a perfect OTC partner, allowing many of these ETF issuers to get large access to XRP. Now, to begin with, when these ETF issuers need spot products, they must have the underlying asset to offer the shares. That means if somebody's going to offer $100 million worth of spot XRP ETFs, they must have a corresponding $100 million worth of XRP tokens underlying within that asset. When investor demand for ETF shares rises, APs must acquire XRP and creation units to back these new shares. This happens via public exchanges like Coinbase, and for transparency, or over-the-counter platforms like the newly launched Ripple Prime for large, low-slippage trades. Unlike retail buying, these are institutional scale purchases, often $10 million or more per unit, and can create immediate upward pressure on spot prices. So a misconception that exists in the crypto market today is that many of these ETF issuers will buy XRP OTC, and that will have zero impact on the price. Well, according to Gronk's analysis of how this process works, many OTC transactions do not get a discount. Instead, they actually end up paying a management fee as well. A great example of how this works is many people believe OTC gets cheaper XRP, but this is false according to Gronk. OTC avoids slippage and not price, where you pay the market value plus a small premium for the size. Ripple Prime holds a secret XRP stash. This is another misconception. That is false. Ripple's escrow, $1 billion per month, is not going to be used by Ripple Prime. All XRP comes from the open market. And the third big misconception here, ETF creation doesn't move the price. According to this analysis, that is absolutely false. Every creation unit offered for spot XRP will have real buying pressure underneath. Bitcoin ETFs move Bitcoin plus 20% in the first month, and many are anticipating we could see the same thing for XRP. A very simple way to understand this process is by using the XRP candy store analogy. XRP is candy in a store. On the store shelf, those are the exchanges, only about 1.5 billion worth of candy on display. Kids, aka retail investors like myself, maybe they buy 1 to 2 pieces of candy at a time. But when the grown-ups or the institutions walk into the candy store, they come in with Ripple Prime and buy whole boxes at $10 million a piece. They take these boxes out of the store and lock them in a separate safe, which is known as an ETF wallet. Now, the shelf has way less candy to offer for everybody else, and the next kid has to pay more for the exact same candy. That's what we would call a supply lockup. Less candy equals higher price for the exact same asset being offered. So in summary, many of these OTC transactions aren't happening because these companies can get a discounted rate on XRP, but instead it's because they can avoid slippage. If you're going to leverage an American exchange like Coinbase, there isn't 10 million units open and available on the order books at a single price. That means that maybe you'll buy 250,000 at 450, 260,000 at 475, and the price will continue to increase as you buy. Another way to think about it is that these exchanges don't leverage OTC transactions to get a discount price, but instead they do it so that they can get the same price on every single asset. By leveraging a partnership like Ripple Prime, you can buy 100 million units of XRP at exactly $2.45, for example. But if you were to go to an exchange like Coinbase, Uphold, or any other, you would be beholden to the order books. That means there isn't 10 million XRP for sale at exactly 245, but maybe there's 250,000 at 250, 250,000 at 251, so on and so forth until you complete your full transaction. By leveraging these large order books or these big boxes of candy that we used within this analogy, you're able to get the exact same price on every single unit and not affect the order books on these exchanges so dramatically as these buys come in. But where it does get exciting in the long run is that this XRP is supposedly permanently being removed from circulation, not being dumped on the open market in the foreseeable future, and locking it away for years to come as this asset increases in demand. Here was the official announcement by Ripple in response to Ripple Prime going live. US-based institutional clients are now able to execute over-the-counter spot transactions across dozens of the most prominent digital assets, including XRP and RLUSD. Following the acquisition of multi-asset prime brokerage Hidden Road, Ripple has combined licenses with Hidden Road Solutions under Ripple Prime. This is providing new capabilities where institutions can seamlessly access foreign exchange markets, digital assets, derivatives, swaps, and fixed income. The launch of OTC spot execution capabilities, it complements our existing suite of OTC and clear derivative services and digital assets. This positions us to provide U.S. institutions with a comprehensive offering to suit their traditional strategies and needs. With this launch, Ripple Prime's US-based clients can cross-margin OTC spot transactions, holding the rest of their digital assets in their portfolio. This includes OTC swaps and CME futures and options trades. What does this mean? More utility for the underlying assets. And Ripple president Monica Long went on to confirm that the XRP Ledger will be used for a lot of its post-trade settlement.
What does this add to the Ripple business?
It's all coming together. So we've talked for a long while about institutional decentralized finance. Many of us here talk about institutions coming into the world of blockchain and DeFi, and this is going to blast that into a new milestone, kind of a new stratosphere. So the idea here is Hidden Road, through its prime broker business, is able to supercharge a lot of what we do. So using Ripple USD, the stable coin, as collateral for all of its prime brokerage services. As well as using XRP Ledger for a lot of its post-trade services.
And as of October 2025, Ripple has over 300 institutional clients with this new Ripple Prime acquisition, primarily hedge funds, asset managers, and banks that are using multi-asset trading. This base carries over from Hidden Road. And with Ripple's integration inside the US, we could see services expand onto the XRP Ledger. They're also clearing over $3 trillion annually, which represents the total transaction volume across every single product. That's spot, swaps, futures, and fixed income. This is handled by the platform in pre-rebranding. So post-acquisition, we may see $9 trillion in 2026 if these trend rates hold. And with Ripple's new capabilities offering an advantage in the American markets, we may see more companies than ever decide to use Hidden Road, now known as Ripple Prime. So do you believe XRP ETFs are going live in the month of November? And do you believe that Ripple Prime is going to help integrate XRP into many of its everyday services? If so, smash that like button, leave a comment under the channel, and we'll see you all in the next one.